What went right for the Oklahoma Sooners against Alabama?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get started with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. The Oklahoma Sooners pulled off a big, nay, I say dominating win over the Alabama Crimson Tide on Saturday night in Norman. Jay, you were there in attendance. I just want to get your initial reaction, your feeling about this game as it was going on before we dig into exactly what went right for the Sooners.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there, and when I got there watching the game, the first thing I thought was, and I was talking to people around me, I'm just hoping everyone has fun. I'm just hoping it's a close game. I'm just hoping that it's not anything ridiculous, that we don't get destroyed as expected. And so I'm watching, and as the game was progressing, the crowd, not only were they getting even more intense, because this was probably the best environment that I've been at an Oklahoma game. The Tennessee game was fantastic as well. Like, you could feel the energy, but of course it quickly kept getting deflated, and you kept hearing the raining of boos as, you know, the turnovers kept going right back to the opposing team. But in this one, the progression of energy just continued to increase. I mean, of course, initially you get X-Rob in the game. He runs that big run, and you're like, okay, we've got something. And then Tatum fumbles the ball, and we're like, not again. This is literally what's happened every time. Then we did a really good job of getting the ball back. And after that, you had the Bauer Sharp drop touchdown. And everybody's like, boo, and everybody lost their minds. And so I'm just like, okay, as long as we just keep having fun, I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to complain. But then you start to see it. The offensive line, the intensity there, you start to see them moving traffic. Moving furniture around. The defensive line, they're moving furniture around. It's like every time you looked up, we were moving people. We were physically dominating.
Yep.
And I'll talk about this a little bit later about Brent Venables and what I thought about this. But the one thing that's really apparent in all of this was very apparent is this team loves that dude. Mm-hmm. To be 5-5 and going out there and fighting like that against this Alabama team, which is a very talented Alabama team, has its flaws like everybody does, but a very talented Alabama team to go out there and physically dominate. Because that's the thing. It's funny because even Venables said it in his post game. He's like, you know, there's no Sooner. Somebody else mentioned, actually, it's Gabe. He's like, there's no Sooner magic in this. Yep. This was literally just a butt kicking.
Right.
And BV said the same thing. He's like, I mean, you know, you can spin this game any way you want, but we dominated this game.
Yeah.
From top to bottom, trenches. Everything that Nick Saban said that we weren't going to be able to do coming in the SEC, the thing that he said that we weren't ready for, we did with ease against his old team. With ease. So it was great. I was excited. I still don't have much of a voice. It's still scratchy. So I'm glad we got to be able to do this a little bit later in comparison. Right. So I can try to get some tea in more in my system to try to get that throat back. But yeah, man, we were loud. It was chilly, but it wasn't bad. The energy was just, you felt it the whole time. And then watching everybody be their namesake and be Sooners and storm the field early when you shouldn't have stormed the field early. Why do we have to be Sooners? Like, Sooner fans, you didn't need to be Sooners for that moment. Yep. You could have waited. But no, we had to be Sooners, John. So that was my take on my raw reaction I had from that, because I still feel it. I'm still in shock. I'm actually rewatching the game this morning while working. So yeah, it's just, I'm in awe.
Yeah, it felt like for a lot of that first quarter, really, that Oklahoma was moving the ball with relative ease. The offensive line was playing great. They were executing the game plan with relative ease and getting into Alabama territory, but it was the self-inflicted wounds that have been marring this whole season that kept them from putting points on the board. It was the Taylor Tatum fumble. It was the dropped pass in the end zone. It was the Zach Schmidt field goal miss, which the dude had been nails all year. And then to miss kind of a gimme, it was kind of surprising, but they didn't let the game get away from them. They didn't allow the self-inflicted wounds to continue to pile on as the game went along, they just continued to execute the game plan on the offensive side of the ball, continue to run the ball with good effectiveness. I mean, they weren't picking up big chunks every single time, but they were just constantly jabbing at him. Then they'd land the big haymaker to the head and pick up the big run, whether it was Xavier Robinson or Jackson Arnold. And then the Brennan Thompson slant that he took for 19 yards. I mean, they didn't throw the ball a whole lot, but when they did, it was efficient and it was effective. And it allowed them to continue to keep Alabama off balance. And that was huge, man. And so, Joe John Finley did a great job coming up with the game plan. Bill Bedenbaugh did a great job getting the offensive line ready to go. And then Xavier Robinson, and we'll talk about him in the next segment, did a great job when his number was called. I said he should have started the game. He didn't, but you saw that he's the most dynamic back that Oklahoma's got right now. And he meshes really, really well with what this offensive line wants to do. He protects the ball. He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. Had 4 receptions for 20 yards. So continue to feed him the ball. He showed that he can be a workhorse running back in this offense. Defensively, Jalen Milroe had nowhere to go. He's one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the SEC, and a lot of it because of his ability to run the ball. Oklahoma was ready and waiting for him every single time. There was only a couple plays where he got a little bit loose in the run game, but on 13 of his 15 snaps, Oklahoma had him dead to rights every time he tried to run the ball.
The fact that we forced them to punt 4 times in the first half is what amazed me. And even that last play where they of the half, they decided to go ahead and make a move, got a run, and then got the penalty and was like, all right, we're done. Kill the clock. We're going to go ahead and move on.
Yeah.
Because they knew we had the ball coming back. Oh, we're up 10-3, which was even the bigger shocker. I'm like, okay, this feels like Ole Miss. If there was a game that I wanted to predict out of this one, I wanted it to be like the Ole Miss game in the first half, and it's exactly what we got. But even better, we weren't letting them throw the ball like crazy on us.
Right.
That was exactly how I felt. It was 100 and something yards offense for them. We had over 200 yards of total offense in the first half. We were literally just running it down their throat. We were muscling them the whole time. And I know everybody's heard everybody say this over and over. It's just that impressive that we really were able to just muscle them like that. And so even from there, then, John, when he got into the second half, that's when I was like, okay, I think we're going to win this. The Eli Bowen interception, I was like, we're going to win this. He gets the pick, and then we drive it down and get the touchdown. Then we get the Kip 6. Like, it's in back-to-back possessions. We forced interceptions. And I'm just like, we are in Bama's head. They're not ready for us. They can't handle us. And guess what, John? They couldn't. They weren't ready. Here we are. We got ourselves bowl eligible. Honestly, John, the one thing that I felt like went the most right in this game is that, like you mentioned, shout out to Joe John Finley, but you want to know who else we need to give a shout out to? Kevin Johns. I talked to some buddies about this. This looked exactly like Duke with Riley Leonard. The exact same setup offensively. The different runs, the counters, the tucks by the quarterback whenever he didn't see a pass there. This felt like the early stages of Riley Leonard at Duke when we started to see Duke become a phenomenon at that year. And then, of course, now he's doing it at Notre Dame after he got injured. But that first year, this is what Kevin Johns was doing at Duke. This is exactly what it looked like. And I was like, I am so glad we got Kevin Johns on staff. We got to find a way to keep him at least for a couple more years. Because that, to me, was a definite definition of what this game was. It was Duke. It was holding the ball. I was going through these possessions, John. There was so many possessions of over 3 minutes. I'm getting a little emotional thinking about it. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, the drive just before the end of the first half where Xavier Robinson scored the 18-yard touchdown, that was a 5+ minute drive.
Yes.
To take the ball past and beyond the 2-minute warning. Fantastic. And then the drive to end the game, 6 minutes, 47 seconds. You get the ball back after Alabama turns it over on downs, and you keep it. You don't give it back. It's the same thing we talked about with Texas versus Arkansas a week ago, right? They got the ball back with roughly 7 minutes to play and didn't give it back. And that's what you've got to do to beat good teams, or to win games kind of like this game, which was a defensive battle. You've got to be able to protect the ball, which Oklahoma did for the most part, save for the Taylor Tatum fumble, and you've got to be able to hold the ball. The game doesn't go this way if Oklahoma doesn't continually convert third downs and continually move the ball down the field and chew up the clock. If they're giving it back, after 3 plays, it's a different ball game. And so the offense just executed masterfully this game plan, and it worked. And I think it's a game plan that they can build upon and use next week against LSU, because we got to talk about Xavier Robinson, man. X gave it to him. He really did. Coming up next.
Get ready to tackle NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that bet. So if you had took that Oklahoma spread at plus 14, you'd have that bonus. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and college all in one place. Like, for example, this coming weekend, Oklahoma right now is a 6.5-point dogs in Baton Rouge, which means that it will probably be a 3-point dog at home, possibly. But hey, actually be 3-point dog at a neutral site, and possibly a pick 'em at home. So if you want to get into the game and you feel like you got a hunch, you can jump into that. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Xavier Robinson, he had the game. That was the breakout game. We saw what he did against Maine. Like, hey, good stuff against Maine. He was really, really good against Missouri, but this was the one where he arrived on the scene. 107 rushing yards, 4 catches for 20 yards, 22 total touches, had 2 touchdowns, the 18-yard touchdown run, and then the run at the goal line. Just did everything. Just did everything that you want a feature back to be able to do against a good Alabama defense. Xavier Robinson, man, he's the truth.
Yeah, he's the real deal. And I remember him coming in, and we recruited him. I remember doing a video on my channel over at Unfair Sports, and I got a lot of mixed reviews. The bigger thing was X was rated as a 3-star running back. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma, Carl Albert Middle School. I've watched his games. His entire junior and senior year. And people were just like, oh, why can't we get some of the high-profile running backs, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, don't worry. This dude's different. There's something special about him. He has the size of Derrick Henry, just a smidget shorter. But he's got the power, the speed. And when I watched him run for 2,500 yards by himself because his quarterback got hurt and carry his team to a state championship, that was everything I needed to know about the kid. Mm-hmm. And boom, we're seeing it. Now, I was listening to the Oklahoma Breakdown, and Gabe made a great point about him. He kind of detailed it, so you go check them out on YouTube. Great Oklahoma content. And Gabe pointed out how the reason you didn't see X-Rob so early is he was scout team, and he was working on his body. He was getting himself better. And even after the summer and the spring stuff in the fall, he was still getting up early, getting in the lab with Schmitty, getting his body right. He's dropped some pounds from when he came from high school, and he's gotten more muscle. And so he did that. And as he improved, they're like, all right, we want to move you out of the scout side. And he did not want to leave it because he didn't want to just stand there. He wanted to always be running and always continue to grow. And at a certain point, they had no choice. When they put him in, you're like, oh, okay. So you have been working. We see the difference. And now we all as fans get to enjoy it. And he was the X factor. We talked about this last week, John. We said, like you said, we need to start him. We didn't, but we need to play him a lot because he has the build of an SEC back, and he has the speed and power to go. He has speed and power and the build to go with it. We got that. And then he went out there and showed it off. Which one of his runs was your favorite so far in this game?
Oh man. I'd have to go back and look at all the runs, but I think the thing that impressed me the most, I mean, I could go with the first quarter run, because I thought not only was he patient,
big run,
found the hole, but he had the Alabama defensive back like hand fighting with him to try and bring him down. And Xavier Robinson's like, no, either you're going to try to tackle me or not, but you're not going to be able to just pull me down. That's not how this is going to work. So the thing that I appreciate so much about his game is his patience and his vision, but his ability to just get yardage every time he carries the ball. Even if it's just 2-3 yards on a carry, he's still getting positive yardage. He's not going backwards. He's not getting stopped at the line of scrimmage. Look over at Pro Football Focus. The man ran for 81 yards after contact, 4.5 yards per attempt after contact. He had 3 runs of 10 yards or more, 2 runs of 15 yards or more, 7 first downs in this game. That's what you need out of this guy. You're not always going to get a clean hole and a clean runway to take off from. You've got to be able to break tackles. You've got to be able to negate some of the arm tackle stuff that can slow some people down. You can't be dragged down by the jersey. You've got to be able to run hard. And that's exactly what he did. And, I maybe my favorite run might've been the goal line touchdown. From the schematic setup, Jackson Arnold under center. If you put Jackson Arnold in shotgun, that takes any threat of a quarterback sneak away, right?
Yep.
But you put him under shotgun, you bring somebody across in motion. So you've got 2 threats already. You've got the threat of the quarterback sneak in that it's, goal line run. You've got the threat of the jet sweep coming across. You may not hand it to him, but you still got to respect that, because if you don't, then that guy's free and it's a touchdown. And then you have the, Xavier Robinson going off on the pitch to the other side away from the motion. It was a really, really good design from the setup to the execution. And then he finishes it physically. That's just what you expect out of Xavier Robinson at this point. And he's just a true freshman. So everything that he's doing for Oklahoma right now is exactly what they need him to do. You need him to be able to grind out the dirty yards. That was a phrase that became really popular actually under DeMarco Murray when he was playing under Jason Garrett. DeMarco Murray had the big season. I think he had the single season Cowboys rushing record that year. And Jason Garrett talked about, you got the big runs, but he's also giving you the dirty runs. He's getting the 3, the 4 yards. He's getting the short yardage stuff. And Xavier Robinson is doing just that. And you're going to need that again this week against LSU.
That's going to be critical. The LSU game, the LSU doesn't have a really good run defense.
No.
We saw Jalen Milroe run for like 180-something yards against them.
Yes.
He literally just ran it right down their throat as well. So if we can go out there and muscle them like we did Alabama for 2 weeks in a row, we'll be able to do something. And LSU's watching that tape like, uh-oh, shoot, we got somebody else that's going to run it at us. They're going to run at us at nonstop. Yeah. Now, LSU did luck out and get out against Vanderbilt, but if we go out there and we play this type of game, very physical, running the ball, you're probably going to be running with X-Rob. If Javonte Barnes is healthy, you're going to run with him. You may toss some Sawchuk in there as well, just to keep it going. Because Sawchuk actually did pretty decent when he came in reserve next to Xavier Robinson. I mean, he only had 2 carries for 8 yards, but he had an 8-yard run to, on one of those runs. You're like, okay, Sawchuk's getting it back. But at a certain point, you realize running it with Jackson Arnold, running with Xavier Robinson, just do that. This is old school SEC football too, guys. Like, this is the thing that, and I mentioned this in the first segment, this is the thing that I expected out of Brent Venables when he came here. For him to find him an offensive coordinator, and honestly, this is what I thought Seth Luttrell was going to do, was find a way to run it down people's throat. Like, you're going to have a passing capability. You're going to have some passing concepts. You're going to fake your pass and then boom, run instead. But your goal was to go out there and muscle people, push people around, move furniture. And we did that as linemen. As good as the defensive linemen that Alabama has, which they've got some big boys. And Saban said that we didn't have the guys at the size that we needed. We were grabbing them underneath here and just get out the way and making holes. And that's what was important. So Xavier Robinson, for me, my favorite run was that first 40-yarder when he just took the ball, cut up, and was gone. Like you said, he was hand fighting with the corner. The corner was basically like, I'm just going to keep pushing you to the out of bounds, because at some point you're going to go out of bounds. Because I need you to go out of bounds. You're going at that right angle. I'm going to keep pushing that angle. If X had dropped his shoulder and pushed more and stayed inbounds, he might have tossed him off and kept running for a touchdown. Yeah. But the only thing is the fact that he was muscling the kid, I'm satisfied. No complaints.
Yeah, it was a great performance from Xavier Robinson. I think we expect him to continue to put up good numbers. And I'm going to call it again. Needs to start this week against LSU. Ended up really dominating the snap count amongst running backs. Had 7 running snaps. Gavin Sawchuk 10. And then Taylor Tatum had just 6 snaps for the Sooners after the fumble. I want to say maybe got in the game one more time, but I can't remember if he did. I'd have to go back and look at that. But Taylor Tatum's a good player. He's just going to have to work on that ball security. That's just really what it comes down to. So Xavier Robinson, man, shout out to you. Shout out to the offensive line. Also, Jackson Arnold, dude. If you're looking for last minute tickets and the lowest price guaranteed, you got to go check out Gametime. Download the Gametime app today, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. A lot of seats available for this weekend's matchup against the LSU Tigers. If you're trying to get down to Baton Rouge and you're trying to find some tickets, got to go to Gametime. They've got the all-in pricing that you toggle on the feature inside the app, and it'll show you everything with the taxes and the fees included, so you're not surprised by what the price is going to be at checkout. Again, using our promo code, you can get $20 off your first purchase over at Gametime. They also have the panoramic seat view. So if you're looking in the app and you're trying to figure out what your line of sight is going to be from your seat, you can see it right there inside the app. Go download the app in your app store, use a promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, over at Gametime, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it?
Game time.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jackson Arnold had himself a legacy game. It's been a up and down roller coaster type of season for Jackson Arnold. And this was one of those performances that no matter what the future holds for him, he can hang his hat on what he did against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Ran with toughness, played disciplined football, played decisive football, and he did what Jalen Milroe has done to everybody this year. And
yeah, he did.
Was so good in this game.
Yeah, he did. He played like his hair was on fire in this game. Now, he may not have got a lot of passing yards and thrown for like, you know, I mean, he had 68, which is fine. But the thing is we didn't need it.
Nope.
We needed him to just he played with care. Yep. While also playing with urgency. Mm-hmm. Like you could tell that he wanted to win this game. Mm-hmm. And like you said, this was definitely a legacy type, redemption type game because he went out there, he took his time. He controlled the ball. He didn't turn the ball over.
Nope.
That's impressive.
Not even close to turning the ball over.
He never put the ball in harm's way. That to me was probably the most impressive thing out of that. Even though when he saw situations to pass it, he didn't throw. But the good thing was it's because we were moving furniture the way we were. Shout out to the offensive line. He was just going to those holes. He was taking the ball into those holes and boom. He would run it and then he'd get down. He wasn't trying to run nobody over. He was getting to the ground when he was running it far, and he saw that like 5 or 6 Bama players was coming. He wasn't trying to just tuck his shoulder and do what the Drake made and run everybody up. Nope. He got to the ground. And that's the thing that we needed most out of him. And the best part is, because he was such a threat in the run game, he was able to find little bits of pass to where they would have to give a little bit of space and fear that he would scramble. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the times, Bama kept pulling back because they're like, we don't want him to launch it deep on us, but then still give him holes to run. And then he would break a tackle here, that little arm tackle, make it happen. This was the game he needed to redeem himself if he does return to Oklahoma. I'm saying the if only because we don't know what the future holds. Mm-mm. But he's proven that, yeah, he's ready to compete for the spot and stick around.
Yeah, this is one of those games where you now have to begin to consider it because he beat Bama. He led you to a win over Alabama. And I know that they, the offense didn't score, but the one touchdown with the short field in the second half, but he took care of the football. He continued to just run clock and eat the clock away so that you could pull off this win. He played a complimentary football on a day where the defense was absolutely dominant. You needed this kind of a game out of your quarterback. You didn't need him to go out there and try to throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. You needed him to help manage the game. And he absolutely did that. There was a ton of great leadership. I can't remember the last time I saw Oklahoma huddle so much.
Right.
But,
and that I think that helped too. Shout out to, I'm assuming that was a Kevin Johns piece. Shout out to him for that. Because I think that helped too defensively, because you weren't showing your hand too early. Mm-hmm. People had to guess. And honestly, I think that's what you're going to see more often, especially now you get the headset. Unless you're going tempo, huddle, take your time, get everybody in the right spots, make everybody know where they need to be, and make sure you take a look at what the defense is doing. Be like, all right, keep an eye on this many guys, and then boom, disperse. Because that to me felt like one of those mind games, those gamesmanship things that I think it kind of threw off Bama in some capacities on defense.
And I loved the fact that when he did drop back to pass, it was decisive. There was one that was like, quote unquote, would be an overthrow. It was on some play action, and it was kind of max protect. And they were hoping, I think, to spring Bauer Sharp and hope to get him wide open, but Bama didn't fall for it. They stayed with Sharp, and there were like 3 guys around him. Well, Arnold just like, okay, it's not happening. So he just launched it like way deep out of the end zone. Nobody was going to have a chance at it. Not even Bauer Sharp, but it was a throwaway. It was, I'm not trying to make something happen here. It's not there. We're getting rid of the ball. We're living to fight for another play. So it was just a smart, fundamentally sound execution all game long from Jackson Arnold. And you love to see it, man. You love to see somebody have the success. You can't rewrite everything that happened this season. He's had some good performances. He's had some really not good performances. He's had some bad ones, but this one right here was a great performance. You even look at when he did have to drop back to throw. He was 9 of 11. The yardage, not great, but it's 68 yards that you got out of your offense in your passing game that hasn't really produced much for you this year. Picked up 2 critical third downs. One was to Brennan Thompson on that big 19-yard reception, catch and run. The other was to Jacob Jordan to keep you down inside the 10. Huge plays in the game where you relied on your quarterback to get you a first down so that you can go and try and score points as opposed to settling for a field goal. So even though they didn't ask him to throw the ball a lot, he was effective when he did throw the ball, and they played the game that you'd want to play. Run a lot of play action, a lot of bootleg stuff, a lot of dump offs. Don't try to do too much. And the way that he ran the ball with the toughness and the physicality and with the energy and the effectiveness. I mean,
moxie.
The moxie. Yes, that's the word right there. The moxie. He played with moxie. He played the game that you had been hoping that he would play. It reminded me a lot of the Tulane game, right? Yep. Just a good rushing effort, did what he needed to do, didn't try to do too much, and was able to help Oklahoma get a big W. And when you have a defense like Oklahoma has, which we really haven't spent a ton of time talking defense today, we'll do that on tomorrow's show because they deserve a lot more attention than what we've given them so far today. When you have a defense like Oklahoma's had, and they're playing the way that they played on Saturday, this is the kind of performance you want your quarterback to lean into. And so shout out to Jackson Arnold for not trying to do too much and just understanding the game plan and being willing to just go out and execute an effective game plan like they did.
Yeah, that's all you needed is he ran the plays as they were placed in front of him. He didn't try to do anything too extra. You didn't see any erratic passes. Like I said, he didn't put the ball in harm's way the entire game. Nope. He did a really good job of holding the ball, tucking. Yep. He took some shots. But because that offensive line was moving furniture the way they were, you didn't have to worry about him. I think he got sacked one time, and I'm not even sure if that was really a sack, if you really think about it. But yeah, he did a really good job of holding the ball, protecting it, and boom, we got a W. We won against Alabama at the crib as a double-digit dog and made ourselves bowl eligible, John. I cannot wait to find out what bowl game we're going to after this LSU game.
Yep.
So I can figure out where the heck I might end up after Christmas.
The projections are all over the place. I've seen the Gasparilla Bowl. I've seen the Independence Bowl, which would kind of be an interesting full circle moment. That's where the bowl streak started back in 1999. Was it the Independence Bowl against Ole Miss? So that would be interesting. I saw a projection for the Gasparilla versus Virginia Tech, which I think would be really, really fun.
I saw one for us in Arizona at the cart in Glendale. The Guaranteed Rate Bowl. I saw that one too. That was an interesting one.
You could get Kyler Murray to come stand on the sideline with the team. That'd be a lot of fun. Why not?
Sign me up for it.
But hey, but if it's Gasparilla, then you're in Tampa. Maybe
Baker Mayfield will be there. I'll go to that one. Sign me up. I want to go to Florida in December.
So there's a lot of fun options out there. The fact that Oklahoma gets the bowl, I know people are gonna be like, why are you celebrating a bowl game? Listen, we're not going to the playoff. It wasn't going to happen, but you're going to get to go to the bowl game, and you're going to get your young guys a lot of practice time. And any of the early enrollees that get to show up, maybe they get to get out there a little bit early and start their Oklahoma careers.
Add to that, John, 26 consecutive bowl games.
That's right. Listen, I used to be in the bowl games don't matter, but now that you had to fight for one, you're like, okay, bowl games kind of matter a little bit.
26 consecutive.
26 consecutive. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Also, go check out his channel on YouTube, Unfair Sports, as well. Follow me at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner.